Hey guys, Eclipse14 here. Alright, so part 2 of my PlayStation collection. I still have 41 games of the 85 left to cover, so I'm not going to make this intro too long. Let's just jump into Stack 5 and continue where we left off. Stack 5. Bushido Blade. This game is kind of like a Soul Calibur of sorts, only it's very, very, very quick in the form of one wrong move and you're dead. Problem with this one is there's very few characters, a handful of weapons, but it's a very, very short game. I only beat it in like half an hour, and that was being stupid. Complete copy of this is about 25 to 30 bucks, so it is pretty cheap for Squaresoft PlayStation games, and overall, I'd give it a shot if you really want a fighting game that goes really, really quickly. Front Mission 3. This one I didn't play a whole lot. I think it was like 25, 30 minutes just to see how it played out, and that was about it. This game used to be kind of cheap, like 15, 20 bucks, but now it's jumped to about 40 to 45 in recent months, so if you can still find it cheap, I'd probably pick it up before it gets really stupid. Legend of Mana. This one's also one I didn't really get to play very much, although this one's also due to the fact that this disc is actually pretty clean, so I'm a little leery on actually really playing it. Heard it's actually a pretty good game. Hopefully I will get the chance to play it at some point in time. Complete runs about 60 to 65, so it's a little bit on the higher end for most Squaresoft PlayStation games, but if you can find it, it's probably worth checking out, I'd say. Threads of Fate. This one I also didn't really play very much, like 10 minutes to make sure it worked, and that was really all I could do before my PlayStation died. Anyway, took me like 8 attempts to find a complete copy of this sucker, and I finally pulled it off. Complete usually is about 50 to 55 bucks, so if you can find it for fairly cheap, I'd probably give it a shot. Air Guys. This one, it's an okay fighter. I definitely prefer Bushido Blade over this one. Has a few Final Fantasy VII characters in it, couple weapons and whatnot. Overall, this one's it's okay. Nothing too special. Completes about 50 bucks, and I actually beat this thing and used Sephiroth to just beat it on the first try. Nothing too special. Brave Fencer Musashi. This has long been one of my favorite PlayStation games because I remember playing it on a demo disc back when my stepdad actually owned just his own stuff, and I saw this thing and it looked really cool, and I always wanted this game. Eventually, I found my own copy. I had to pre-order it actually, but other than that, it actually looks pretty good. Got both stuff here, and in the back here is the Final Fantasy VIII Trial Edition disc. It's actually a really good game, but it's also one of the higher priced Squaresoft games. Complete's running about 70 to 75 right now. I really do love this game, and I would recommend it to anybody, though. Breath of Fire 3. This one is an awesome game. I've completed this one twice. Overall, I really enjoy it. Would like to play it again when I get a PS2 or PlayStation that actually works. Complete runs about 50 to 55 and is a very enjoyable experience overall. I'd say it's definitely worth the 50 bucks. Same thing could probably be said for Breath of Fire 4, but that's gotten a lot more expensive these days. I've beaten this one once, fully. Complete's running about 70 to 75 at this point, so it is a little bit higher. They used to be on par with, 3 and 4 used to be on par with each other, so nowadays 4 is kind of on the rise, so if you can get them about the same price, I'd probably go for it. Diablo. This is unusual because it's a PC game that got a PlayStation port, which has some two-player capabilities. Never really tried to figure the multiplayer out because I play alone all the time. But just seeing this thing just sounds a little bit unusual. Overall, it plays pretty nicely. Didn't really play it a huge amount, but it does seem to do its job well. Complete's running about $75 now. This one's not the best looking copy, but this game is also very, very difficult to find. So if you can find it, if you have the money, I'd probably go for it, because Diablo is a pretty good game on PC, and the PlayStation version seems to be pretty good as well. And last on the stack is Wild Arms, another one-discer, because the manual's too fat. This one, didn't really play it a superb amount. I've wanted to for a while, but I just never got around to it. Complete's about 40 to 45. Used to be fairly cheaper than that. I think it was like 30. But they've been on the rise these days, like pretty much everything else on PlayStation. I'm actually kind of surprised some of these games got as high as they did, and it's about to get worse as I go deeper into these stacks. So, yeah, hopefully I will play this game at some point, but right now I just need to get a console that works. Stack 6. Star Ocean: The Second Story. I've been wanting to get into Star Ocean for a while, but I never really got around to it. Only managed to play this game for about half an hour before I stopped to do other games, and I just never returned to it. Disc 1 is in its full cover, and Disc 2 is the same way. Just flip this around, and if I can get the case open, there we are. So yeah, it looks pretty nice. Complete copy is about $40, so it's relatively affordable. But yeah, I don't really have much to comment on it because I only played it for so long and never managed to really get into the series despite wanting to do so. Grandia. This is another one I played for about half an hour, but that's mostly because of disc condition. The first one actually looks very good. Got the manual right there. And the second one actually looks like it's never even been touched. As in, no fingerprints, no dust, no nothing. That's not easy to find, and I'm very leery about playing this game because of it. Although I should give it a shot because I played Grandia 3 on PlayStation 2, and that turned out to be pretty good, so I'd like to see what the first game is like. Completes about 50 to 55, so if you can find it, I'd probably give it a shot. Dragon Seeds. This game is... It's hard to comment what this game exactly is like. It's like a Pokemon-ish feel of sorts, to which you, raise up your dragons to fight and become the Dragon Master. I think that's kind of how the story goes. Kind of like got a fighting-ish feel to it. It's a game that's really difficult to describe. I'll just put it at that. Completes about 60 to 65. This game's always been pretty uncommon, and for a while it used to be about that point. Sometimes it was as low as 25 to 30 bucks. But if you can find this game, probably give it a look because it's definitely odd and might be something that might be interesting. Starting with this game, the price tag starts getting very stupid on most of my games. I think only 5 games are under 100 bucks usually. Clock Tower is not one of those cases. This one is... I'm not really too big on horror games in general. This one is actually not that great. Tried to play it for a little bit, definitely didn't feel right, and never really came back to it. I mostly picked it up because I knew that this was a pretty pricey game at the time I even picked it up, which was about $80 to $100 at the time. Nowadays, a complete copy of this runs about $130 to $150, and the second game, which I had a chance to pick up but narrowly missed because of stupidity, that one is now up to 300 bucks for a single complete copy of Clock Tower 2. So if you can find either of them, probably pick them up if they're pretty cheap. Shadow Tower. This one, it's a first-person role-playing game, but it's one that's definitely not familiar because I didn't even know about this game until like 3 weeks before I picked up a physical copy, I should say. It's a first-person role-playing game, as I said, but it's also a very difficult one where you could die very, very, very quickly. So I put in about 45 minutes on this one just to give it a shot. Definitely a troublesome game. This is one of those games where I'd pick up if you definitely want a serious challenge, but only if it's pretty cheap. A complete copy of this runs about $150 to $160, and it is not a common game by any means whatsoever. R-Types. This game is a combination of R-Type and R-Type 2, which are actually pretty good. I've beaten the first R-Type. I have yet to do R-Type 2. Won't be able to do that anytime soon since I no longer have a working PlayStation or PlayStation 2. Complete copies of this are about $35 to $40, which isn't too bad in any sense whatsoever. I definitely recommend it because both games are pretty good. If you like a decent shoot 'em up, I'd give this game a shot if you can find it. It's not saying much for its R-Type Delta. This is the 4th game in the series, and a very, very expensive one. A complete copy of this is running into the 180 mark, probably as high as 200, if my copy actually looked a little bit better. I was very lucky and only paid about $35 for this game, and that was online, because very few copies of R-Type Delta showed up online, and even then they're still kind of scarce. But they were always very, very high. The disc alone is like 65 to 70. But this is actually my favorite R-Type game because the overall design of it is very, very well made and it looks pretty cool. So, if you're looking for a really good shoot 'em up, I try to see if you can find R-Type Delta for pretty cheap because it's an amazing game and I don't see this one get much love. Silent Hill. This one is a well-known Konami horror game. Didn't really play this one all that much, like 10-15 minutes to make sure it worked, and that was about it. I actually own the strategy guide for this game right here in the back. Prima's official strategy guide looks very nice. Now I think about it, I forgot on my 5th stack, also I screwed all that up, I forgot that I had Legend of Mana's strategy guide as well, and I completely bypassed that, recording that stack, so that sucks. A complete copy of a black label version of Silent Hill is running about $100 to $120. Green label is about $100 as well, so it's definitely gotten very high in recent months. So if you can find it for cheap, I'd probably get it quick. Azure Dreams. Azure Dreams is a really interesting game. It's a dungeon crawler where you have two main goals of take out the monster tower and build your own town. It's actually a really neat game. Never finished it. I did get pretty far into it and was still really playing it by the time my PlayStation died. And overall, it's actually a really good game. Complete copies now are about $80 to $100. But if you can find it for pretty cheap, I'd probably recommend going for it. This is notably, it's also available on Game Boy Color as well. And I've heard that that version's easier, but that might be because it's just a smaller system compared to a bigger system that is the PlayStation version. Tales of Destiny. This is a brand new game. I actually picked this up on my birthday, paid $120 for it, which is, at the time, it was like $140 to $150 at the time. It's risen up to about $175 at this point. This was the new game. Technically, my number 85, despite having 85 in the previous recording of this, because I had a duplicate of Crash Bandicoot. The manual is a little bit creased. I flattened it a little bit when I got home, and so it looks a little bit better and fits the actual case now. And got the disc as well. I've been wanting this game for a while and only saw 2 of them in the wild, including this one, so I've been wanting it for a while. Glad I picked it up. Can't wait to play this game when I actually get a working PlayStation or PlayStation 2. This was one I've been wanting for a while. Glad I picked it up. And that's really all I really have to say about it. That is Stack 6. Stack 7. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This one really needs no explanation since a lot of people know this game. It's a very good Castlevania game overall. I managed to get about halfway through it before everything stopped working, so this is definitely something I want to try to beat once I get a working system again. A complete copy of the Black Label is about $100, and the Greatest Hits version is a good chunk less than that, but it's definitely a must-have for the system, even if the price has gone up very high over the last couple months. Castlevania Chronicles. This game is a port of the arcade version of the original Castlevania, to which the NES game derived itself off of. This is kind of like rival schools on my first part of this whole collection, in the sense of there is the arcade translation and an enhanced PlayStation version. The only difference between that game and Castlevania Chronicles is that those two, rival schools put it on 2 discs, whereas this is on the same disc. A complete copy of this game runs about $140 to $150, so it's very high, and has been that way for quite a while. So, if you can find this game, it's not an easy one to come by, but it's worth a look if you really want to see the arcade version of Castlevania. Vandal Hearts. This game is a strategy RPG in the form, kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics, but I never really got too far into this game. Only about maybe a mission or 2, and that was really it. I never really got into the game, mostly because I was looking for Vandal Hearts 2, which I'm still looking for. A complete copy of this game runs at about $45, so it's actually kind of affordable for a pretty decent strategy RPG from what I've heard. Hopefully I will get the chance to play this a little bit more when I get a working PlayStation again. Suikoden. I have beat this sucker. It is an excellent game for its time, and I really am feeling the mood of playing Suikoden again, just the entire series, because it really was a good one. Brings back a couple bit of memories just going back through some stuff, and I should probably just start with the first game. A complete copy of this game runs about $50 to $60, so it's definitely decently affordable, I'd say. Probably a little bit expensive for some, but it's an excellent game overall, and definitely probably the best one prior to Final Fantasy VII. Suikoden II. I've completed this game with all 108 characters and gained in a couple extra goodies on the side. Boy oh boy am I glad I own this sucker though, considering a complete copy is now into the $300 range. It's always been pretty high for a very long time, and it dropped a little bit to finally under $100 back in December 2014 thanks to the PSN release, but it slowly crept back up to its original price and got really, really nasty over the course of last year. So I'm really glad I own a copy of this sucker. Don't know if it's still on PlayStation Network, but if you can get it there, I'd recommend it because it's a pretty cool story and overall a very good game in general. Tomba. This one's tough to comment on because I know it's an adventure game, but I don't know too much else about it because I only played it for about an hour and never really managed to settle myself into it, especially considering I had been wanting to play it for a while and I was playing other stuff and never really got back to playing this sucker. A complete copy of this game runs about $120 to $130, so it's not cheap in any regard whatsoever, but it has a really neat concept, and hopefully I will have the chance to play it sometime soon. Tomba II. This one it's the sequel to the first one. It runs under it's a 2D gameplay on a 3D format, as opposed to the first one, which is basically full 2D. I got about halfway into this game, got stuck, and never really got back, especially since I was missing a couple things that I noticed later on, and I never got back to it. So hopefully I will be able to finish this one. A complete copy of this game runs about $100, and I did have some fun with this one. Hopefully I will have the chance to finish the Tomba games, because I actually had some fun with the second one, and the first one looked pretty interesting as well. Thousand Arms. This is a rather neat little role-playing game that I remember mostly for its combat system being pretty interesting to me. It's a 2-discer. There's the first disc, got the manual right there, and on the back is disc 2. If you notice on my case, I have a couple memory card stickers that actually came with the game, but I'm missing one of them, as well as a sticker sheet that's supposed to go with it, as well as a hologram card that came with this game as well. That's kind of missing, but it's nice to see that there is at least 3 of them just stuck on the case for whatever reason. A complete copy of this game runs about $100 to $120, and overall it's actually a rather interesting experience, and something that I would like to go back to sometime soon. Persona. This game is the game that carries the highest price tag in my entire collection. A complete copy runs at about $300, and technically Suikoden II at this point it's going a little higher than this game is, but I'm putting this as the top dog because of condition differences. The case is a little bit stiff here, but the manual looks pretty nice, and the disc is actually in very good shape. I only played the game for about an hour, pretty much due to nervousness of not trying to screw up the disc, considering especially how expensive this game has gotten since then. It's been very, very high, and that's why I'm kind of nervous playing it. I will play it at some point in time. Definitely want to try to get Persona 2 before it gets stupid. But until then, I'm very happy on the first one and can't wait to play it. Alundra. This game I have completed. It's a rather dark but excellent experience. I got the manual right here. And inside the manual is the map for the game. Don't want to pull it out right now because I don't want to go through all the stuff. I have to one-hand everything so I keep my phone camera available. But there is the disc, and it looks pretty nice. Complete copy of this game is run about $100, but I don't think that's counting the manual, and that manual is not very common whatsoever, so it could be a bit more than that. It's an excellent experience. I really enjoyed this game. It's a dark game in terms of storyline, but it's also a very good action RPG, and it's just if you can play this game in any way, shape, or form, it's an experience that I definitely recommend. And that covers stack 7. 8th and final stack. We start this one with Alundra 2. This one is one that I simply just can't get it done. I've tried to complete this game like 5 or 6 times, but I would end up getting sidetracked and end up erasing the save file. So I never ended up finishing the game. I got about a quarter of the ways through it at maximum, I think, and I just could never get it done. This is one that I really need to finish just to say that I finally finished it. Don't have too much to comment on otherwise. Elemental Gearbolt. This is my only light gun game, which, yes, there are light gun games on the PlayStation, but I don't own the gun for that. Thankfully, this can be played with a controller. That foil cover is awesome, and my god, is this game just... It is an excellent game. It's a short one considering it is a light gun game, but it is also just... The story is pretty neat for, dark but neat for a game like this. Definitely an unusual experience. I have beat this game under hard difficulty, believe it or not. Complete copies of this are about $140 to $150. This thing has always been very difficult to find in the wild. I've only seen one since my pre-ordering of this game. I ordered it online through eBay, and it took many, many months for me to find another copy, and even then it didn't look as good as this one did. So I'm glad I picked this one up. This is an excellent game if you can find it. I'd recommend giving it a look. Vanguard Bandits. This is the only other jewel case game that's missing something, and in this case, I got the game disc and the manual. But the second disc, it's a 2-discer, is actually supposed to be for the Lunar 2 demo disc, which unfortunately I'm missing. I managed to, considering that I knew what the condition of it was, I kind of haggled the owner a little bit, considering he didn't think that 2 discs would mean it would be it'd be completely worthless without the second disc. But knowing what it is, I managed to get a deal out of it, and I've had this game ever since. Complete copies of this run about $150 to $160, but I'm assuming that's with the Lunar 2 demo disc. I think with just the game and manual as is, I think it's a good chunk cheaper, but how much so, I definitely don't know. Either way, this is an excellent game. Pretty good strategy RPG. Tactical RPG, I should say. Kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics and Xenogears of sorts, because you've got big mechs, and it plays kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics of sorts. So, it's a pretty neat game with multiple endings, and I definitely would recommend checking it out if you have a shot. Lunar Silver Star Story Complete. I'm kind of cheating a little bit because this is a big box and the next one is also a big box, but it includes 4 discs and the leather booklet. I'm not going to open this on camera right now because, again, I have to one-hand all sorts of BS, considering this case is also busted on the outer discs, so I would end up having those discs just fall out. So that would be a problem, especially considering how good the condition is inside. I also own the Lunar Silver Star Story Complete Strategy Guide. I bought it on December 26th. Got a collection update video for that last month. And other than that, complete copy runs apparently about $100 at this point, so I'm glad I got it. Definitely do want to play this thing, though. Now that I have this guide, I should be able to figure everything out, because I've been wanting to play it for a while, never really got around to it, so hopefully I'll have that chance. And the final technical jewel case stuff is the Arc de Lad collection, which is an even bigger case. This one's also got a leather booklet, as well as an Amaki box, which contains a couple stands from Arc de Lad 3, a memory card case, and some thumbstick covers that also look pretty good. It's a 6-disc case, as opposed to the 5 discs said there, because it's 5 discs of actual games, and then the making of disc. Complete copy of this runs about $80 to $100. Mine's in okay shape. The bottom flap's a bit torn. But other than that, yeah, it's a pretty decent series of strategy RPGs that I just never really got around to playing. So maybe I'll give that a chance when I get a working PlayStation or PlayStation 2 to make it possible. And that is all the jewel cases, finally. However, there's still 6 long boxes to do, so let's finish it off with that. Alright, here we go. Starting off with A-Train, which is it's a simulation game that's, I didn't really put too much time into this one. I hate this box, though, because the box is in bad shape. Never liked these kind of boxes to begin with. Manual is a bit rough, and the disc is right there, which is in okay shape. A complete copy of this runs about $30, and, I don't have too much to comment on otherwise, other than the fact that I hate this style of box. Resident Evil. I like these ones a little bit more, but especially like the jewel cases better. Unfortunately, I can't open this without having to cut and open it myself with 2 hands. So I'm going to do that with these ones, and I'll do that right now. Okay. Unfortunately, this one is in pretty bad shape because someone actually kind of abused it for a while. The center here is kind of busted, so the disc's always wobbling. The manual's actually got a couple pages that are disconnected from the book, and the case itself is actually cracked. Unfortunately, this is not one of those cases where I could just replace the shell and be done with it. This is actually a whole set that has to stay together, so unfortunately that kind of stinks. A decent complete copy of this actually runs into the 80s. Yep, see, there it goes. And a complete decent copy runs into the 80s, so hopefully I will find a new long box copy and replace this one over time, because this is actually a really good game, and long box Resident Evil copies are very, very tough to find. Tekken. This one is in the jewel case form, and I definitely like it. Let's see if I can get it open. There we are. Overall, it's an okay fighting game. Pretty quick. I managed to beat it, and don't have too much to comment on it otherwise, considering I beat it with every other character. Complete copies of this run about $30, and is a pretty nice Tekken game overall, although Tekken 3 is still probably the best Tekken on the PlayStation 1. XCOM UFO Defense. I never really had the chance to play this game because I picked it up after all my stuff broke down, but I have it for when the time comes because I have been interested in the series for some time, mostly with its very high real-time strategy with very high chances of just like permanent death and all sorts of stuff like that, so it's been pretty interesting in my case. It's the only one that has this foam in my PlayStation collection, so I got that sitting there. A complete copy of this runs about $40 to $45, and hopefully I'll get to play this thing sometime. Discworld, another one of these cases, and the last one's the same way, so let me cut and open this one. And that's the inside of this case. For a while, this game was about $30 to $40 complete, but the second half of 2020, this game just went way off the rails. Currently, it's in the 80s mark, which is just absolutely unreal for a point-and-click game. Only played this one for about 30 minutes to make sure things were fine. Never really did too much otherwise, because I'm not really too big on point-and-click games, but I am familiar with the Discworld series, and I just wanted to pick it up because of that. Hopefully I will actually give it a shot at some point. And the final game is Starblade Alpha. Once again, gonna cut to open. And there we are. This game is a pretty quick rail shooter. It's one of the first 3D rail shooters that actually had some influence for Star Fox. And overall, it's a really quick game. This thing is beatable in about 30 minutes, and that's because there's like no other alternative routes or anything like that. It's just a very, very baseline game that got a much later port on the PlayStation. This game is very rare. It was not common to find a copy of this game online at all. This is actually this actually came from eBay. It's my only eBay copy. The only game I got from eBay that came out of Canada, and paid 30 Canadian dollars for it, which at the time was about $27. And it came by pretty quickly, and I've had it ever since. Never heard of anyone speak about this game in any way, shape, or form. It is not a common game in any sense whatsoever. It was very difficult to put a price tag on it as well. But lately, more copies have been showing up, and they're regularly about $100 complete. So this one's actually a rather interesting oddity. So if you're looking for a decent rail shooter, I'd probably look at this as pretty much a pioneer to some of the later rail shooters. Overall, it's a pretty good game, but it's a very short one. Alright, that is my large 85 game PlayStation collection. Oh my god. This took way too long. Had many difficulties trying to upload part 1. Thankfully, the hard part is over. Next up will be my PlayStation 2. Definitely will have a good break on that one. Should be able to finish that within a day and have that uploaded before too long. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this large 2-part session. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you'll watch the PlayStation 2 collection as well and everything else. And I will see you all on the next video.